hello, and welcome to my cellar for the 248th time numbered. A lot of things to talk about. Well, we got one big thing to talk a lot about, and several other smaller things that I found interesting that we're going to talk about too. So, I'm feeling animated tonight. I just have to remember not to shout because my lovely wife is asleep upstairs. But my resolve will undoubtedly fail. All right, diving right in. Okay, still catching up in the backlog of my vids. Nice to see I haven't tired of answering any questions about D&D after all this time. Well, yeah, why would I? Makes me think of the alternative case in people like Harrison Ford, who were bitter and abrasive when asked about something iconic they are closely connected to. I was also amused to hear, I'm glad, okay, well, I wish I had Harrison Ford's money, but I'm glad I don't have his personality. I was also amused to hear that the two sets of Marvel movies you named were the only ones I had any interest in, too. Well, what's that say about us? Ant-Man and Doctor Strange. I think that last one has the most bearing. I love the scene with the over-the-top fight shrunk down into toy train layouts, sort of gratifying to see something like the little green men I'd carefully set up on the carpet, printed with cartoon roads and buildings for real. I got a story about the little green army men. I was playing with little green army men and also blue and gray men from a Civil War set. To the point where, to the age where my parents are beginning to wonder if I wasn't a little strange. And I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me, and I think I had to finally give up the sandbox to her. I was probably 13. Because I didn't know it at the time, but I'd been making war games in the sandbox with my army soldiers. And it was just, childlike preparation for what I ended up doing. Weird, huh? Except that I also had the little boys in the Midwest during that period of time's destructive capabilities. So there was little cannons that would actually fire a lady finger, and if you were really careful with how you timed it, you could lob it over to the other side. And we would bury landmines, and it was me and a couple kids in the neighborhood, and then they kind of drifted away from it, and I was still out there making up scenarios and shit. So yeah, me and Little Green Army men go back a long, long way. And I was not a fan of the multiples with the helmets and the guns and it, because you always lost the guns. Yeah, give me a Little Green Army man. Rugged G.I. Joe grunts. I love Janelle's work, Caverns of Thracia, Rocks, and Perspective. Thanks for pointing me to her Facebook post. You're spot on about the WotC polls. As I understand it, one of the leaks from inside the company showed that the whole intention behind the polls is to redirect criticism away from public platforms like Reddit to where the company can more easily control it. That certainly is viable an idea and a position to take as many of the others that are going around. We'll never really know because nobody was in those meetings that took place before, during, or after. But I certainly I believe the polls. I believe they put it just like I said last time. I believe they offered the polls like a here, pack. Here's some bones, and then they assigned the two most junior employees in the whole division to go through and collate it, and then don't bother, and that would have been the end of it. It was just a sop, a palliative, if you will, to make us think they were going to listen. I know, I'm a horrible cynic. But when it comes to companies this big, I watch too much History Channel. Thanks again for another video and answering. I work in the care industry. Hope your hammer toe is okay. I've had a few clients with them and they are a pain. Oh, yes. Actually, let's see, how do I phrase this? I will be getting him checked yesterday because I'm recording this on Thursday night and it comes out on Saturday and my appointment is on Friday. I had just one stitch. I didn't sleep worth a damn the first couple of nights because you just can't find anywhere to get that damn thing comfortable with any kind of covers on the bed at all. But it already doesn't hurt as bad as the hammer toe did, so it's an improvement, and it's still healing. I'm definitely going to go see the D&D movie. As a result of the job and pandemic, I've had to live like a monk. So a chance to go watch any movie that is about something I love is going to have my ass in a seat. Good to hear it. You should. If you don't, and all you saw were any of the other ostensibly D&D movies, you wouldn't want to go to your grave thinking that was the best there was. You got to go see this one and hope to God it's better. Personally, I don't see what the appeal of Darkness Rising is. I know there are many, many people that love it. I'm just not one of them, that's all. And I even met a few of those people several years ago. I can relate to your monastic situation. I'm still wearing masks in public and it's summer where I live. Get the occasional odd look or shake of the head. When you have reasons to be extra careful, it really does curtail one's social life. Glad to hear you can get out to a movie and enjoy yourself, and the D&D one looks like a good choice to me. I agree. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not taking any baggage in on it, pro or con. I'm going in to say, hey guys, entertain me in a way vaguely reminiscent of the game I play. That's good. Anything beyond that is going to be great. This is going to be another one of those moments. I've had a couple of these in the theater where I'm going to sit and at some point it's all going to wash over me that I helped make this happen way back when. Kudos to Hasbro for actually reading the surveys and showing an honest response. Well, we're going to talk about many times about this topic, and it's going to twist back and forth. So bear with me. It's going to be an interesting ride, I can tell you that. Kudos to WotC for forcing their puppet masters, Hasbro, to change course. And most high praise to the gaming community for a successful grassroots movement that accomplished change. Of course, I do not trust Hasbro. I didn't trust them in the first place. But I can be magnanimous in victory. Though I have no interest in their versions of the game, I do appreciate the classic reprints that they sell. Okay, this is one of many times I'm going to voice this. It would seem that the gaming hobby, the public, us gamers, won this. Now, it's a battle. Have we won the war? Too early to tell. There's no doubt that they have plans to monetize D&D going forward. No doubt. That's clear. They are going to monetize it. I agree with you about the movie. Pardon me. I get how folks are upset. As an indie publisher myself, I'm very much vested. But I understand the reality. If the movie doesn't make any money, they won't make another one. I can't tell people what to do. That's just the reality. You're right. Personally, I believe it's going to make a lot of money. I think in all my years in this industry, I think if we aren't right now for this, we'll never be right. My personal opinion. And I've been in the business since 1975. So, taking a long time to get to this point. And it's going to have some over-the-top stuff, and it's going to have some stuff that defies the rules. So what? If it's entertaining, if people that are only mildly interested or got drug along with it by their significant other who does love it, whatever. If they enjoy it, yay, we all win. Okay, now this is an interesting question and a subject near and dear to my heart. Does the concept of dungeon ecology suggest to you that the original architecture of a dungeon as a purpose-built historical site should be considered in the plan and usage of rooms by those incumbent at the time? Oh, incumbent. Okay, living there at the time. I have drawn differing kinds of maps. They have always been of, well, almost always been of structures that have been destroyed, fallen into decay, fallen into ruin, long lost in the impenetrable jungle, whatever. But they had a floor plan. I guess you could call it. They had a floor plan. They had blueprints, at least as I drew them out, and then lower levels or what have you on my graph paper. Therefore, if we posit that delvers are exploring old ruins, places that nobody's been in a long time, etc., 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 it would make sense to me that they would be newfound, newly heard rumors of found places that have an architecture to them. Now I've written a lot of stuff that I self-published back in the aughts, and I like using ruins of an actual building because you can build the building, then decide where the walls have crumbled or where the breaches have occurred, and then you can populate them with something that would logically find shelter there. And if it's a tall enough building, you can have a nasty, wicked flying thing on the top and something else or many something else's living in the bottom. But there has to be a consideration of ecology. What do they eat? Where do they get it? What wants to eat them? How do they dispose of their waste? Because only the basest monsters will live in their own filth. And even then, if we give orcs and goblins a semblance of order, then they may dispose of their waste or make an attempt at it anyway. But yeah. Now, I built a temple that had been buried under the sands for a long time as a result of some horrendous, near cataclysmic, gods-inspired whatever. And again, okay, now it's been exposed. Didn't mean that there weren't animals such as jackals. Jackals are very good at finding caves and places to shelter out of the wind. And scorpions, and everything else you associate with a desert. There would have been places where they could have crept in, certain animals of a certain size, nothing, giantly big. But then you didn't know what was already in there, and it was Uh, it, I wrote the whole thing so that it would make ecological sense. What lived above, and what lived below in almost terrarium-like circumstances. Now, that's not to say that you can't find mysterious caves and whatever, or cave openings that might lead off to a hidden tomb. Um, how you populate / protect that tomb is up to you based on what's in it. How much does it need protecting? Again, the great reward, great risk. Is it a really great thing? Well, then there ought to be something clever, or something strong, or something wily, or a well concealed trap or deadfall of some sort, so that the risk and reward balances out, because that's terribly important. Let's see what else. Again, I look at a big ruin as a source of several dens, or the foundation of an entire city or settlement, or an enormous tribe, depending upon what you're talking about. I don't believe by now that most people are doing what many of us did in the beginning, and putting something in every room and loading down. It's the biggest thing is risk and reward, risk and reward, risk and reward. And if the reward is great, then the risk should be. But the risk should be able to be overcome by fair means or foul. I don't want to suggest that DM should obsessively study real torture chambers. I read EC Comics and we don't need any more crypt creepers. But the idea that dungeons were places of imprisonment, well, that was only one part of the underground, the cellars, the sublevels, the sub-basements. By definition, the dungeon was, perhaps it was the lowest, rankest, most foul, dripping water and mold growing on the walls place. But it wasn't the only place underground, otherwise they'd just call it a jail. It's an area sequestered, separated from the rest of what's underground. Now, I have no problem positing a magnificent place that at one time was enormous and perhaps housed 1,000 souls just within its own magnificent structure, as having 5 or 6 lower levels, because they would. And just for storage and that, the deeper you go, the colder it gets, the better it keeps. And they would all have ramps, because if you're going to use storage, you got to have wheeled carts or donkeys or something to haul this stuff up and down. Think of the fun you could have. Almost makes you think of Donkey Kong. A little more deadly, perhaps. Let's see. Yeah, I agree. The writer goes on to say that a plan and layout of a place to explore is made more rich by the inference that it has its own history and purpose, though the purpose may be co-opted by the denizens of a different area. That's bang on. That's why I said it before I read it. It's exactly the way I feel. Quick example, I wrote an adventure about finding a temple that's now been revealed in the desert as the winds have shifted, has been discovered. And the it was a temple to a specific goddess, and the payoff was that they had managed to divert light underground to these natural chambers underneath the place with the temple grounds, and they raised bees, and they kept the bees segregated somewhat, and these bees had pollen from one type of plant, and this bee had another type, and a third one made great mead. And in the absence of the tenders, the bees had gotten about the size of a cocker spaniel. Still fly, but after all, they're aerodynamically they can't fly anyway. And the payoff was honey. There was just tons, well, hundredweights of honey of 3 different kinds that had 3 different effects. One that made mead that was the most famous mead in all the land and commanded huge prices for just a little barrel. And another one made deadly stuff and stuff that people dabbling in medicine might look at and experiment with. The other one was like a curative. And, of course, coming up with buckets and pails and that to get it out afterwards was a problem. But not really, because if you're looking for instant gratification, yeah, too bad. But okay, we've cleaned it out. Look at what we got. All right. How many of us are there? All right, 3 of you go back for the horses and some wagons, and we'll stay here and guard the loot. And that's a good time to split up the party outside, particularly if you're not under threat from the indigenous species of the area. And you can abstract the journey there and journey back by just a few rolls to see if they had any trouble, see if anything happened to the campsite. That's real easy to abstract. And you can compress time that way. The trip down and back, okay, that's a day, all right. Whatever a day means in your campaign in terms of healing or spells or whatever. Okay, next page. We have a lot of pages tonight. To me, on the WotC Hasbro drama cycle, did Hasbro engineer drama as a PR stunt to pimp one D&D? Who knows? I usually go with Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice what is adequately explained by stupidity. I like that. I don't even know if it's real. I don't care. It's late at night. But I like that. That's a good chuckle. God, no, I don't think they did. I think they stepped all over themselves, metaphorically. Wearing track shoes. Or golf shoes. As of this writing, it appears that WotC Hasbro has sent the SRD, or core rule system, into the Creative Commons. Grand gesture or false posture. Since only the expression of the rules is copyrightable under current law, meaning the rules themselves are not protectable by copyright or trademark. Yeah, that's right. Grand gesture or false posture, doesn't matter. Once it's in, it's in. Whether we beat them or they got tired of, it's just like fighting a battle. Whether it's you beat them or they just got tired of fighting and lowered their arms, you win. Take it for what it is. Now we're going to talk more about that and what is it exactly. Because this is just way too complex crap to talk about willy-nilly. Pick it up here. Since only the expression of the rules is copyrightable under current law, meaning the rules themselves are not. Okay. The expression meaning how the rules relate to various IP that is trademarked or copyrighted by WotC. Yeah, well, it means that third-party people are still going to be able to write under the OGL or ignore it altogether and just use different terms. We did it at Eldritch. We just hacked up the terms and the stats, and anybody with half a wit could see what we were doing and easily relate to numbers they were more familiar with. Okay, now we were talking about what brought this on. Okay, and this is an interesting idea, but I'm also going to flip it. The driving force to further exploit D&D appears to be down to an activist investor, which means an investor that owns enough stock to make serious suggestions, questions the abilities and diligence of the board, and point out that the board members are sitting on their asses while personally making hundreds of thousands of dollars out of D&D without doing any work, for example. Yes, that could be. On the other hand, if WotC came out with this all by themselves, but one of those type of investors was a fan, had kids that played it, whatever, works both ways. Interesting idea. Both ways. I'm not taking anything away from the original idea. And it's very, it isn't. There are activist investors. Paul Icahn made a career out of it, and a lot of money. So basically, an analysis all along, these moves are driven by stockholders demanding better returns. I look forward to seeing what comes of all this. In a publicly owned company, it's ultimately the stockholders. Now, when management has them in the palm of their hand, like Musk seems to have some of his investors, they'll go along with anything. Sure, yeah, you're a genius, you're a genius, you're a genius. I don't know that some stockholder out there decided to take on Hasbro as being fat, having stuff that needs to be trimmed. It's kind of hard to believe, since how they basically own the market for games and gaming, literally and figuratively. I think myself that a lot of it was very poorly thought out. What can we do to make more money? Because, gee, it was bad last year. And again, sales said, we did great. We did everything we could. And creative people go, oh yeah, we created great stuff. And it still didn't sell. For whatever reason. Well, for one thing, the pandemic was over. Everybody's games sold like crazy during the pandemic, not just Hasbro's. No, they sold more than all the rest of us combined, still and all. They should have seen that. They're all down. I didn't see them making a decision that they're going to take two pieces out of the Monopoly set and only give you one die, and taking out half the $500 bills for economy reasons. I didn't see that. Oh well. On to other stuff. We'll be back there again. I hope, new commenter. I hope that we see a mega boom in third-party companies adding more interesting content and creativity to the hobby and feeding a trove of hungry new gamers. Yes, I do too. Now, what I want to keep creating will not feed a trove of hungry new gamers, because hungry new gamers are coming in on the later editions, particularly 5e. But that's great. There's people out there writing for 5e. That's swell. And absolutely, we should feed that and keep them as gamers and get them hooked. Give them a little gamer crack. I don't think you can monetize a TTRPG system unless you either produce quality products or release a new edition. WotC haven't been able to do the former recently, so they must rely on the latter. Well, I got a question. And I got a confession at the same time. Why? What drives these buying new editions? Speaking only for myself, I've never bought anything except AD&D, the 3 core books, first edition, and the old little books. And I've played with them since 1974, 73, 74. Yeah, 74. And I must lack some gamer gene that I want to see the newest, bestest edition of the new game. That's like, again, I'll use Monopoly as a good old beat-up example. That's like a new Monopoly improved. Well, I've seen a couple of them, and they aren't. They're just cashing in on the logos and the icons. I've got one. It's got fancy gold-plated looking, gold-looking plated counters. I just don't understand the idea to run out and get the newest edition of a game that you already know how to play. It doesn't compute for me. Now, I understand wanting to run out and grab the newest book that one of your favorite authors just released. Absolutely understand that. Run out, get music, download whatever, how you get your music of your favorite bands. I understand that. I will say that second edition was okay, because it was mostly a cleanup and clarification of first. And first was somewhat sloppy, particularly by today's standards. Back then, I'll make an excuse. We were writing the book as we were publishing books. Nobody'd been doing it before. And I'll still claim, and make the claim and support it, that the books we did in those early editions, with the binding we did, are the best books that have ever been made in this industry. Because they're still soldiering on. 3, I didn't understand, why people wanted to try the new one. I'm a fly in amber, the way I run the games. The people I play with, if I wanted to run an RPG for them, I'd run the wheel, and they're not experienced role players, but they'd have fun. Because that's all I do is have fun. If I couldn't have fun, I wouldn't do it. All right, here's an interesting question to ponder. And we're going to come back, I'm sure, because this stuff hops all over the place. Do we really need levels to determine a character's advancement? Well, those levels were very carefully calculated out by Gary and Dave as to balancing the character types against each other, how many points to go up a level. They were biased as hell, stacked against wizards, favoring fighters. That was Gary's thing. And the occasional cleric with a big, hefty mace. And that's the way they were done. They were also done to scale the experiences you would need to accumulate. And I never thought that you got experience. When you killed a manicore, you didn't get it for killing the manicore. You got it for the experience of figuring out how to and successfully killing manicore. Otherwise, you just go to the zoo and kill everything one cage after another and rack up points and advance 3 levels before you got out of the kiddie zoo. Anyway, I digress. I believe that they are valid as a reference point. Now, when I was running the games down in Carbondale testing, we a few times didn't actually go back and count. They just all went up a level, or, advancement was awarded according to accomplishment. And it was kind of loosey-goosey, and we weren't really, have our nose up in the air about what level we actually were. In most cases, we were glad we were still alive. And the fact that we just got promoted, yay, that's icing on the cake. What if we only used experience points to buy improvements? Are there any other methods that we could use? And I'm gonna go to a couple of replies, and then I'm gonna come back and address it. So many other systems for advancement. Good questions. Your own answer is a good one. I believe there are games out there that use that very concept. Another concept, and this is another person, used in skills-based games where players roll on specific skill categories to solve a problem, a success, or perhaps a crit success, or a nat 20, etc., would gain a tick against that skill. And I guess in Cthulhu, it's a D100 skill set, and you can go up 1d6 percentage points every time you do something in that particular skill. Now, I have a personal issue with the reliance on skills and abilities. Knights at the dinner table make great sport of taking skills and taking handicaps to offset them, and ending up a one-eyed dwarf marksman with one leg. Anyway, I'm more into campaigning with a group, and within that group, we take note of who had success trying this or trying that. And it doesn't matter if they dumb lucked into it or if they figured it out brilliantly. They got credit for it. So the next time something similar came up, they had a better shot. No hard and thumb. No hard and fast rule of thumb. Hard and thumb, no. None of that either. No hard and fast rule of thumb for that. That's how Doug became the Hobbit, because he was such an incredibly successful thief. He just had phenomenal luck in those early weeks of playing the game of successfully picking locks and finding traps and disarming traps. He just had phenomenal luck. And then when the luck curve started to smooth out, well, he'd already gotten a few advantages, added pluses. So he was able to continue his career as a very successful thief. I played some years ago with a group at the local game store, and there were a couple of guys in there that were 3 or 3-5s. And yeah, I could tell because they sat and didn't do anything. They didn't ask any questions. They didn't gather any information. They were waiting for their non-existent skills and abilities to kick in. I don't think they knew how to participate in a group exploration. Weak social skills, whatever. I don't. Again, there were 2 guys out of 7 or 8 every week, and we had many interesting things going on there. But it seemed to me that they had become too reliant on skills and abilities instead of asking questions. Gather information. No, you don't get a skill or an ability to gather information. No, that's something you ask questions. I challenge the players to keep asking me until I explain it exactly how they need to understand it. It's quite all right. That's my job. Now, I can almost get on board this one with the Cthulhu. But I really kind of like the one with the percentage uptick. If I was going to change to develop a skill in a certain area, that might be the way I would do it. Yeah, you see, we used character sheets for a lot of this checking and ticking. We took notes. Opened a safe, opened a chest, found a secret door in the back of the closet. Things like that. And so that we had our street cred right there with us. Okay, and now some more shit about the OGL. The OGL situation continues to develop. It would appear that we've won, but have we? I've seen it opined that the OGL is actually still under threat. The OSR community is particularly concerned. A better question raised by PC Gamer is that the OGL isn't worth fighting for. Game mechanics cannot be copyrighted. I also know that the OGL has the means to avoid litigation in a hostile business environment. Okay. The OGL as the means to avoid litigation in a hostile business environment is something of a sacred cow. Nevertheless, truth is truth, given all that, and WotC's predominant position has at the time really come to walk away. I'm bothered by efforts such as Black Flag to support 5e. I'll interject here for just a second. It's not so much supporting 5e as it's supporting the 5e players who will then look upon their products with favor and be eligible to be shifted over. I think that's a smart marketing move. My opinion. Yours may vary. This sport keeps WotC afloat, whatever happens with WotC's own sales figures. I'm not usually a boycott guy, but we've seen the face of the enemy. We've won a victory, not the war. Agree with that. It takes two to tango. As long as people continue to support the company, even in marginal ways, it's going to continue to be a problem. Well, just go look at their list of titles. And unless people quit playing games of all kinds everywhere, our little bit of the slice of their business is negligible in comparison. I think what got a quick resolution was the public outcry that they couldn't keep it off the social media, that NPR came and did an interview with what the hell's going on here type thing. That must have just appalled the suits. Oh my God, those hippies from the radio. Oh my heavens. Liberal hippies from the radio. Let's see, I get it back in here. Okay, then it goes on to say that VTT, virtual tabletops, haven't done all that well yet. I wouldn't know. I haven't fooled with one. He's come to think that the OGL was a mistaken trap that has led the industry to the state we're now in. We're better off before it, with plenty of game companies competing for players, whatever people might say about TSR C&D letters back then. What's your rate on the situation? Well, I wasn't at TSR when they were sending out all those C&Ds, but for what I've learned from the person who sent a whole lot of them out, They were legitimate, and they should have been. There's one game out there that I felt was a direct steal and rip-off, and counseled Gary and Brian to that effect. They poo-pooed it, laughed it off, and it's still around today. And it happens to be made by a loathsome person. But they didn't act right away, and then it was too late. Oh, the game in question is Tunnels and Trolls. I don't have anything against Steve Jackson. I like Steve. Let's see, what else? All right. My read on the situation is that we think we might have a handle on what's going to happen. It would appear that Hasbro is backed up, at least for a while. Now, are they going to do this again in 6 or 8 or 10 or 15 months? I don't know. They might try it. I do believe that they're going to try and turn 6E into a cash cow with microtransactions. And I know about microtransactions. I don't do them, but I play a couple of stupid pixel games that would allow me to make microtransactions if I wanted to, but I don't. I play on a poker site that I don't spend money on. I just play with what I win. I'm up to 14 million. If they're going to do that to 6E or 1 or beyond or whatever the hell they decide to call it, fine, let them. If it's a viable business model, they'll make money. Won't make any difference to us. We'll still be playing our games. So what? So what? Did we win? Well, we won a battle, that's for sure. Good old courtroom drama for D&D. Storytellers may be borrowers, but if with larger companies could learn from these stories of fighting... well, that was a little confused. Monopolize imagination, maybe better luck controlling chaos. Yeah, okay. All right, now, got 3 more topics to hit on. Saw an interesting question on one of the Facebook groups about illusion spells in the Undead, and would they work? And this individual, I believe, said that he had allowed them to work because he couldn't find anything to the contrary. So that got me to pondering. And it is my considered opinion that some might and some won't. Any illusionary spell that relies on colors, for instance, the prismatic spray, I've always considered undead, zombies, not vampires because they're a special level, but, the normal run-of-the-mill undead, to whites, barrel whites, all those, to be colorblind, that they see either thermally or just in black and white. They don't have any eyeballs to process anything but black and white. And that's even, they're zombies with no eyeballs, or barrel whites or whatever. So some of them might, some of them won't. They do react to light. So something that is really bright might stun their optical senses. It would depend on the spell, and I know that's kind of a quibbling answer, but I think it's a fair one. I enjoy the illusionist as a class, but I would much prefer to see him stay as an NPG. Because at low levels, they're even wimpier. But that's just my take. Now I got a I got an odd thing. I'm sorry. I've got a cold. My nose is itchy. I know that's very rude. Pardon me. Pardon my poor manners. Um, I'm coming up to a quandary on Facebook. Now, when I got on Facebook way back when, it was kind of like a, oh, gee, opening the door, peeking in, and see what was going on. And then I was advised that I could build my brand using Facebook, and so I have. Facebook has a limit on the number of friends that you're allowed to have, and I'm approaching that upper limit. So now, I've never had a real hard and fast criteria except, well, or couple, three people I know or names I know on his friends in common. If so, yeah, okay, fine. Problem with that was back in the day when I was playing Pot Farm, I probably got 500 or 600 pot farmers in there. The game's been dead for years, but I still got them there as friends, and I don't want to go back through 4,500 different listings and see who might be a defunct pot farmer and unfriend them. Because unless somebody does something pissy, I don't unfriend people. Because some people get real upset by that. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do, though. I got to get more and more picky about who I... And then, it's a never-ending conundrum. Somebody has a solution, they can let me know. Okay, now, I have a thrilling contest for all of you that watch this. As you know, my Wheel of Blame used a coin. Do I have one up here? There it is. Used a coin as a token to get off the Wheel of Blame. Okay, there it is. Somewhere between a quarter and a nickel. I've used all those up. Had 300 made. So I've used up 300 of them. So I'm going to make a new coin. And it's going to be a bigger coin. It's going to be about 1.25 inches. Two-sided. So here's the contest. Design my next coin for my Wheel of Blame game. It has to say Wheel of Blame. Has to have my face on it somewhere. Doesn't have to be the cartoon that Jim did of me. You don't have to be a great artist. I'm looking for design. Now, if you are a good artist and you can knock it all out yourself, fine. But it's not going to give you any advantage over somebody who's a little cruder about it, like myself. But if it's a brilliant idea, it's a brilliant idea. And then I'll find someone to render it. Now, what's the prize going to be, you say? All right, I'm going to make you and my wife happy at the same time. The prize for the winner of the design is a copy of the very first printing with what we call the Field and Stream cover on it of the Snake Riders of the Arredondo. That was my first one with Eldritch. And that cover was printed to go to one con. We didn't sell them all. We did a much better cover on the second batch and subsequent batches. It'll be signed to you if you want, whatever. It's mint. I have about 8 of them out in the garage. So, and not only will you get a copy of Snake Riders of the Arredondo, very first printing, first batch, from my t-shirt drawer, I will pull out 4 gaming t-shirts. Because I got so damn many, I might as well start giving them away. So it'll be 4 gaming t-shirts and a copy of Snake Riders for the winning design. Two-sided coin, 1.25 inches, has to be legible, has to say 2 things. Has to say Wheel of Blame. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't have to say Wheel of Blame. But it does have to say it's not my fault on the back. The original coin has a caricature of me that says, "In Tim we trust," and the back has this strange sculpture that says, "It's not my fault," because that's kind of the punchline of the whole Wheel of Blame thing. So there's your charge. Until then, Dodada Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.